In the 1960s, to be modern was to embrace a world hurtling forward at breakneck speed, one where yesterday's traditions felt as outdated as a rotary phone in a world suddenly buzzing with transistor radios. It wasn't just about owning the latest gadget or wearing the shortest skirt, though those certainly helped, but about embodying an attitude of optimism, innovation, and a cheeky rejection of the stuffy past. The decade kicked off with a lingering glow of post-war prosperity, and by the middle years, it seemed as if humanity was on the cusp of conquering not just Earth but the stars themselves. Being modern meant believing in progress, scientific, social, cultural. It meant looking ahead with wide-eyed excitement, even if, in hindsight, some of that excitement looks a touch naive, like betting your life savings on a flying car that never quite materialized. At the heart of this modernity was a cultural shift driven by youth. For the first time, young people had disposable income on a scale that previous generations could only dream of, thanks to economic booms in places like Britain and the United States. Teenagers and 20-somethings weren't just consumers, they were the pace-setters. In London, the so-called Swinging Sixties crystallized this vibe, turning the city into a global epicenter of cool. Time magazine famously dubbed it Swinging London in 1966, capturing a moment when Carnaby street boutiques, Beatles records, and miniskirts made the old imperial capital feel vibrantly new. Being modern here meant frequenting places like Mary Quant's Bazaar Shop, where clothes were affordable, playful, and designed for movement. Short hems allowing girls to run for the bus without a second thought, or so the story went. Quant herself quipped that it was the girls on the street who invented the mini, not the designers, a democratic twist that perfectly encapsulated the era's ethos. Modernity bubbled up from the masses, not down from the elites. Fashion was perhaps the most visible marker of being modern. Gone were the rigid corseted silhouettes and formal gloves of the 1950s. In came bold, synthetic materials like PVC, vinyl, and plastic that gleamed under discotheque lights. André Correges's 1964 Space Age collection set the tone with white boots, geometric cuts, and helmet-like hats that evoked astronauts more than housewives. Pierre Cardin followed suit with unisex designs and metallic fabrics, while Paco Rabanne linked dresses from aluminum discs, clinking like chainmail from the future. These weren't just clothes. They were statements. Wearing a silver mini dress or go-go boots signaled you were part of the jet set, or at least aspiring to it, ready for a world of moon landings and supersonic travel. Of course, not everyone could afford haute couture, but high-street knockoffs made the look accessible, democratizing modernity in a way that felt revolutionary. And let's be honest, some of those outfits looked more comfortable for orbiting Earth than navigating a crowded tube station, but that was part of the fun. Practicality took a back seat to optimism. This futuristic flair spilled over into design and architecture, where being modern meant embracing new materials and forms that screamed, tomorrow. Mid-century modernism, already brewing in the 1950s, hit its stride with clean lines, open spaces, and a faith in technology to improve life. Aero Arneo's ball chair, a fiberglass pod on a swivel base, became an icon, perfect for cocooning yourself in a private bubble while listening to the latest Beatles album. Joe Colombo's modular furniture systems allowed homes to adapt like spaceships, with stackable units and hidden compartments. Plastics, once seen as cheap, became celebrated for their moldability, yielding egg-shaped lamps and blob-like sofas that defied gravity. Brutalism emerged too, with raw concrete structures like London's Barbican Centre, bold and unapologetic, symbolizing a no-nonsense future. Yet even here, humor crept in. Those massive, fortress-like buildings sometimes resembled oversized parking garages, a reminder that not all visions of modernity aged gracefully. Technology amplified this sense of being modern. The space race dominated headlines. Yuri Gagarin's 1961 orbit, followed by John Glenn, and culminating in Apollo 11's 1969 moonwalk, making the impossible seem routine. Televisions brought these triumphs into living rooms, while innovations like the compact cassette and color TV made entertainment portable and vivid. Computers, though hulking mainframes, promised a rational, efficient world. Harold Wilson's 1963 speech about forging Britain in the white heat of scientific revolution captured the mood. Modernity was about harnessing tech for progress, from Concorde jets to oral contraceptives freeing women from traditional constraints. Being modern meant popping the pill, driving a Mini Cooper, affordable, zippy, and emblematic of classless mobility, or dreaming of holidays in package tour Spain, all while nodding approvingly at lab-grown solutions to old problems. Music was the soundtrack to this modernity. The British invasion led by the Beatles turned pop into a global force, with songs like A Hard Day's Night capturing the frenetic energy of youth. Mods, short for modernists, embodied the style. Sharp Italian suits, Vespa scooters, and a love for soul and R&B that crossed old class lines. They clashed with rockers in bank holiday brawls, but both subcultures rejected the drab conformity of their parents. Later, psychedelia added a trippy layer, with bands like Pink Floyd experimenting with sounds that mirrored altered states, LSD being another hallmark of seeking higher modernity. Festivals like Monterey Pop in 1967 and Woodstock in 1969 gathered hundreds of thousands, proving that being modern could mean communal, too, even if the mud and logistics sometimes undermine the utopia. Socially, modernity meant challenging norms. The permissive society, as it was dubbed, often disapprovingly, saw legal reforms like the abolition of capital punishment in Britain, easier divorce, and decriminalization of homosexuality. Civil rights movements in the U.S., inspired by Martin Luther King Jr., and anti-war protests against Vietnam forced reckonings with inequality. Feminism gained traction with books like Betty Friedan's The Feminine Mystique, questioning why modern women were still tethered to kitchens despite labor-saving appliances. Being modern often meant protesting, marching for peace, rights, or freedom, believing change was not just possible but imminent. Yet irony abounded. Many who decried consumerism shopped avidly at Biba, the ultimate boutique experience where affordable glamour made everyone feel modern. Art reflected this duality. Pop art, spearheaded by Andy Warhol and Roy Lichtenstein, elevated everyday objects, soup cans, comics, to high art, blurring lines between elite and mass culture. It was modern in its irony, commenting on a society saturated with advertising while reveling in it. Minimalism stripped things bare, with Donald Judd's geometric boxes challenging viewers to see form anew. By the late 1960s, cracks appeared. Postmodern whispers questioned modernism's grand narratives of progress. Robert Venturi's Learning from Las Vegas celebrated kitsch over purity, hinting that unadulterated modernity might be boring, or less is a bore, as he famously quipped. Being modern in the 1960s also carried a global dimension. Decolonization reshaped maps, with dozens of nations gaining independence, promising modern development free from imperial shackles. Yet the Cold War loomed, with proxy conflicts reminding everyone that progress could veer destructive. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 brought the world to the brink, a sobering counterpoint to the moonshot euphoria. Economically, modernity meant affluence for many in the West. Full employment, rising wages, and consumer goods galore. Supermarkets stocked exotic foods. Holidays abroad became commonplace. But not everyone shared equally. Poverty persisted, and by decade's end, recessions loomed. Still, the prevailing mood was forward-looking. In everyday life, being modern could be as simple as owning a lava lamp, its gooey blobs mesmerizing under blacklight, or furnishing a flat with G-plan teak units. It meant rejecting Victorian heaviness for light, airy spaces. Television shows like The Avengers, with Emma Peel's catsuits and sharp wit, modeled the ideal: stylish, capable, unflappably modern. Of course, not all embraced it. Older generations grumbled about long hair on boys, short skirts on girls, and loud music. Kids these days, they sighed, missing the irony that their own youth had shocked elders. But the moderns pressed on, convinced they were building a better world. By the late 1960s, fatigue set in. Assassinations, JFK, MLK, RFK, shattered innocence. Vietnam dragged on, eroding faith in authority. Environmental concerns emerged with Rachel Carson's Silent Spring. The oil crisis loomed. Postmodern skepticism crept in, questioning if endless progress was illusion. Yet the 1960s vision of modernity endures. It taught that change is possible, that youth can reshape society, that boldness beats caution. Those miniskirts, moon boots, and modular chairs remind us of a time when the future felt bright, limitless, and just a bit ridiculous, in the best way. Being modern then meant daring to dream big, even if some dreams involved plastic dresses that crinkled loudly. And who could resist a little crinkle in pursuit of tomorrow? The cultural artifacts of that era, from Twiggy Stowe eyes to the Beatles' mop tops, became icons because they captured a fleeting moment when the old world yielded to the new. Modernity in the 1960s was less a fixed state than a moving target, always evolving, always promising more. It embraced contradictions, utopian yet consumerist, liberating yet sometimes superficial. Women gained freedoms but faced new pressures to be youthful and slim. Men experimented with hair and fashion, blurring gender lines subtly. In architecture, the decade saw triumphs like the Sydney Opera House, its sails evoking futuristic sails on an ancient harbor, or Habitat 67 in Montreal, modular homes stacked like futuristic beehives. Brutalist libraries and universities rose, functional monuments to education's modern role. Literature too shifted. Philip K. Dick's sci-fi probed identity in technological worlds, while beatnik holdovers like Kerouac gave way to more structured experimentation. Cinema exploded with new waves. Goddard's jump cuts, Fellini's excess, Bond films' gadgets, all modern in technique and theme. Even food modernized. TV dinners, instant coffee, fondue parties, convenience as progress. Being modern meant navigating these changes with style, perhaps a wry smile at the absurdity. A young Londoner in 1965 might scooter to a club in a PVC coat, dance to Motown, discuss Vietnam, and believe tomorrow would be better, plastics included. As the decade closed, the party slowed. But its spirit, optimistic, innovative, irreverent, shaped what followed. Today's retro revivals, from vinyl records to mid-century furniture, nod to that era's confidence. In essence, to be modern in the 1960s was to live in exhilarating transition, convinced your generation held the keys to the future. It was thrilling, flawed, and utterly human, a reminder that modernity is always, delightfully, a work in progress.